Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exclusive interview here on InStyle Atlanta. I am your girl, Miss J, and I am being joined by Ayana Bean. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Let's get into your story because you have a great story. I had the chance of watching your episode
Oh,
of
nice.
on BET
Mhm.
for American Gangster Trap Queens. Let's start with your childhood. You grew up in Boston. Can you explain to us how your childhood was?
Uh-huh.
What were your experiences like in Boston? And then we'll get into how you became a trap queen.
Okay. Well, I grew up pretty much like anyone else, just regular. We lived in, I'm not going to say we were poverty, but, we lived in impoverished areas. My family, my mother's family and my father's family migrated to Massachusetts from the South. My mother's parents being from Birmingham, Alabama, my father's family being from North Carolina. Here in Massachusetts, and they all met living in the projects here, one of the projects here in Boston. Big families, lots of friends of families, as friends and families and friends, all
Mm-hmm.
migrated here from the South. So, pretty tight, close family and friends. Grew up all together. My mom had 8 brothers and sisters. My dad 11. So,
Wow.
so very big families. Um, and as a kid, I just grew up in a lot of love. I grew up in a lot of love. I had a lot of cousins. I have a lot of aunts and uncles. I was, gifted to have both my sets of grandparents. Um,
And that's a
and
blessing within
it's,
itself.
yes, it is. And I really realized that today, because now I only have, not only have, but I'm thankful to have, still my grandmother and my grandfather for my mother alive and
Okay.
well, you know, and so it was a good feeling growing up as a child. I had a lot of love and support around me, and I didn't feel that we were poor at all. I didn't know what those type of things meant. My parents were young, so it was fun and crazy at times. It seemed like in our family when I was growing up, and I was the only child until I was 5 years old. So
Oh, wow.
everything seemed fun to me with them.
So you got a
Um,
lot of their attention up until your siblings came along.
yeah, yeah, I was spoiled. I was very spoiled. I was spoiled by everybody because I was the only niece, the only granddaughter, so I had it all around, but there were things that also came with that too. And now that my book is out, I get to talk more about it. But it wasn't something, a lot of things I didn't talk about in the episode. Of course, they just wanted a piece of, a couple of chapters of my
Right.
life. So that's what the show was about. But growing up and to get to know who Ayana Bean is, again, just a regular girl that grew up in a in a big family. We didn't grow up rich or poor, but we would consider it back then be impoverished, living in the projects with my parents. Them having their first place, they moved from the projects with their parents to their own apartment in the projects. So that was exactly how I was raised. But I wasn't raised hard, like to be hard or tough like that. It was
Right.
just, I'm just a fun person.
Okay.
And,
Awesome.
yeah, yeah.
So let's segue over to your episode on BET, and then we'll talk
Hmm.
about your book as well.
Okay.
So you were featured on the first season of American Gangster Trap Queens on BET. And I want to know, how did you go from having such a great childhood, as you were just explaining to me, to now being labeled as a trap queen?
Well, I don't consider myself a trap queen.
Okay.
I don't consider myself what the definition of what urban legend is to be a trap queen. I don't feel as though that's my definition of
Hmm.
it. What I do believe of it as a trap queen, you're a person who knows how to get outside of being trapped in a box. And you may try all and any type of ways to come out of that. So that's my definition of it. I
Okay.
wasn't your drug dealing gangster girl or anything like that. Which is mostly what you would associate or assume trap queen to be. But that wouldn't be my definition. But definitely not liking to be boxed in and trying to find every way that I could possible out of that box. I definitely would then be that. Yeah. Queen of
Okay.
not being in a box.
There you go. Okay. Queen of not being in a box. That's what we're going
Right.
to label you as. Look.
Yes. Yes. And how I came to that was, again, I did live fairly, a good life. I had some traumatic moments growing up in my childhood that could have ended me up in different areas of life, or I could not be in this life at all. The way that I decided to grow up into my teen years, and the things that I stumbled across and what I discovered life to be like, and trying to figure out who I am.
Mhm.
Getting up to Trap Queens, I was a young mother. I became a mother at 17 years old.
Okay.
Um, and again, I always want to make it clear that none of these things are ever an excuse for poor decision making.
Mhm.
Not to make it any at all an excuse, but these are the factors that contributed to my decisions. So I just want to make that clear.
Okay.
So I grew up being I was a teenage mom. And by the time I started to get into the workforce, I started off in customer service. I started learning finance out of high school. I was interested in numbers. I loved that kind of, that life there. I took your Series 7 license. I worked for life insurance, all these type of things. But none of those great titled jobs ever had the salary to go with it. They have these
Mhm.
big names, but they have those little salaries to go with it. And I was working hard. And I climbed my way up the ladder in many different companies. But it was never enough. It was never enough to make ends meet. One of the contributing factors was at the time that I started committing crime. I had 2 children, 2 young boys, and I had a partner. And my partner had a substance abuse issue. And
Okay.
so on top of just trying to make ends meet with everyday regular life and the basics that we had, there was also this other child to feed. This addiction had taken over and become a whole nother child in the home to take care of, and that problem superseded everything else. It seemed like it did supersede everything else, unfortunately. And as a young person who believed that, family is everything, keep us together no matter what, support and help each other, I thought that it was my job to make sure we kept this train moving properly.
Right.
Ignore the problem, ignore the problem, just try to fix the problem. And I did that. And I did that by jeopardizing my life, jeopardizing and taking away from my children's lives. And so, one day at work, I was the director of financial services, Perkins loan coordinator. I had a great corner office overlooking downtown Boston.
The city, right?
Yeah. At a college, but no one knew I was going home like, oh God, what are we going to eat today? Or, oh my goodness, like, we don't have, you didn't know how we were living. It looked nice. It looked nice. I began to take the checks from my job and deposit them. And, it was a means to an end. It was a means to an end. And there was no strategic plan to this. There was no mastermind way to do this. I figured out a couple of ways that I could possibly get away with doing this for a temporary time or a long period of time. That wasn't a thought process.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, what can I do right now?
Right.
And so once I deposited one check, and look how smart I was, right?
Right.
I deposited this check into my own personal bank account. Like,
and
how long was this going to last?
Right.
How long was this going to last? Right. But, the thing about people when they're trying to just get by or just try to do anything, or when you're in a desperate state, you don't really think about all the factors. In your head, you're just talking yourself into, this is going to work because, you're being your own devil's advocate, right? Because you want this to work and you're giving yourself every excuse in the book why it's going to work and why it's the right thing to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is what Ayana did. Ayana abused her power of her position. She took checks from her job. She learned that you didn't, by doing this position, she learned you didn't even have to have signatures on these things, the rubber stamp or whatever. These checks were still going through. They were still going through, But once I put that first one in there, And when I seen that it cleared and I was able to take it out and there was no issue with that, I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna pay this back.
Do this, right?
Right. I'm gonna pay this back. It was just I think the first check I did was like $900 or something like that, very small. But that $900 went into $3,000, then 6, 7, 10, 12. You know, it just continued to go. It just continued to go. And each time I was afraid. But after it went through, it was just like, boom, we're in, you know. I'm in there. And you know, it's like, wow, you know, looking around, it's just not even, just so silly, not even, so just lost. And I began to use those funds to make more than just ends meet. I started traveling. I was learning the music business at the time. And I started going places, going to different events, exclusive events and things like that, meeting people, you know, working with different people. I got some opportunities to do things for some labels and stuff like that here in Massachusetts. So I was using that to fund this little business venture that I felt like I, you know, was doing. And at the same time, jeopardizing my life, right, to be taken away from. And this is what crazy people do. You know, this is what desperate people do. And, you know, and it could always be in question. Were you desperate? Were you in harm's way? Or were you just a greedy person?
Right.
You know, were you just a greedy person?
And sometimes as a single mom, because I was a mom at 17 myself. So as a single mom, sometimes you feel like, okay, I have to go to the extreme, or I have to do certain things to provide for your children. Like you said,
right,
you are a director and you didn't know sometimes how you were going to feed your kids at night, you know? So sometimes
absolutely,
you have to take those extra steps. I'm not encouraging anybody to, but right, sometimes when you're in desperate situations like that, they cause for desperate measures.
Right. So, and it doesn't allow you to think. If you don't think properly. I'll say that. Or I could say I wasn't thinking properly. I was thinking of everything but this happening. I was like, it was always a fear hanging over my head. I was always scared about it every day, but I just kept ignoring and just run it along and see what you can accomplish in this time before. But there was never in my head, oh, they're going to come and this is going to end. It was just like, oh, it's not ending. So just keep going. And hurry up and just living in anxiety and fear, but still smiling like, you know,
everything was okay.
Right. Which is how I learned to live through life as a young child, you know. Yes. You know, you go out of this house telling anybody what's going on in this house.
Exactly.
You know, you put on a brave face and you go out into the world and you just live.
So you, as you just shared with me, you also shared this in your episode that you were promoting events, you were a talent manager, you were still a financial aid director. Right. How did you manage all of those titles and responsibilities in addition to being a mom as well?
I just did it. You know, again, I had no plan, but I did have time management was pretty well. So, you know, you work your 9 to 5. You know, I planned the vacation times around the events that were happening. Called out sick a few times because I didn't drove down to New York or something. I mean, I remember going down on my lunch break at work, I went and got got my outfits together and everything. That night I drove to a Grammy party and then called out of work the next day.
Oh my God.
But I was heading back. But it was like, you know what? I don't want to go in. It was 7 o'clock. I'm just hitting Boston. No.
You're like, I need my sleep.
Yes. So these are the things that I did. I hustled myself. I lied to myself. And I did all of that to accomplish doing the wrong thing. And it seemed easy to do. Right. You know, it really did. It seemed easy to do until it was hard to do. And it's hard to juggle everything when you're doing it by yourself.
Absolutely.
You know? Yeah.
So let's talk about your first prosecution. So once you got prosecuted your first time, you served 6 months.
Right.
You came home, you got back into the school system. Why do you think you're going to resist the temptation of not falling back into old habits?
Okay. So the crimes happened 10 years apart.
Okay.
Right. So that would be, you know, of course, one of the things you wouldn't know. So I went to jail the first time. My sentence was 6 months and 3 years probation. I didn't go working for school again. But while I was waiting to go back into prison, I'm sorry. While I
That's
was
okay.
waiting, while I was sentenced, waiting to go into prison, I did leave. So I left one school. The reason how I thought I would stop stealing was go cold turkey and go somewhere else to work in the same in higher education, but a different position that wouldn't involve me taking
With the
checks, that had
financial,
nothing to do with
right.
checks. So I went to this whole nother school. It was several months later that I was arrested for the first school at the second school. And I wasn't stealing from that school. And then once I came out of prison, I started working, like doing data entry. So I was
Okay.
working in a whole nother field. And I did that job I was at that same job for like 6-7 years. And then it was like, okay, I'm off probation. I'm off all this job was peanuts. Again, this is way less than the other one, right?
Right.
And there's no climbing the ladder. There's no doing everything else. Now I have a record. So I have to take this job. There wasn't any stipulation that I couldn't work in higher education. I liked higher education as a kid. I liked school. That's the place that I wanted to be. It was just, well, I should be able to be here, but I have to do something different, right? This is me talking to myself,
Right.
So then I did, after, a couple of years, I did go work at another school, and this was in a different capacity. Instead of being you're in charge of your loans, I'm now the financial aid advisor. So all I'm doing is making sure that your paperwork is correct to get approved for loans, right? The law states that you can't, the same person who gives out funds you can't do both. That's double dipping.
Okay.
So, but this school didn't run like that. I didn't know that, you know what I mean? I ran right into it. So it's like, oh, and I even said, well, you guys aren't supposed to get the checks here and distribute them to the students. That's against the thing. But it's like, little girl, this is how we do this. So it's like, right. It's like, okay, okay then, So it's like, oh my God, this is like putting an addict back in a crack house or something.
Exactly.
But it wasn't even that. It's like, my life didn't change. The surrounding circumstances never changed. But they did change for quite some years, right? They did. So, I mean, it was a rough time that we struggled for many years. When I first got arrested the first time, I had purchased a home. Months later, I was arrested. So the whole time I was trying to hang on to this house this whole time. It wasn't a large or whatever out of control, but I'm saying I was able to afford it at the time, and now I'm making less. I can't really afford it. So was barely hanging on financially for many years, right? So the job that I took on being a financial aid advisor, it wasn't much more, but it was more than what I had been making. And it was a way for me to be able to, again, climb the ladder, do all these great things, right? But life didn't change. My household didn't change. And then it had gotten worse. And it had gotten really, really bad. Things were getting sold out of the house. My kids are now getting older. So basically, my life circumstances had never changed. So we're still having this monster now that I called it addiction had turned into a bigger monster. It turned into a bigger monster. So again, and I was just living like, figure it out, make it happen, continue to scrape and get by. Sometimes working 2 and 3 jobs. Just doing what I needed to do to make things comfortable as they could be. Like I said, my kids are getting older. They notice more. There's no more lying to them, saying, things to just move them along just as well. So there was situations that led up to and I was at the job. It didn't start off automatically. And it wasn't like I got there like, okay, or it wasn't that I wanted to go back in there to do this. That wasn't the case at all. I was thinking I got a second chance to be a successful, and a successful businesswoman here. And it didn't happen because I didn't allow it to happen because I kept my circumstances the same. And so I got to a breaking point, and then it was, okay, I'm back to a similar thing. I figured out a new way to do something. It was on a smaller scale. It was, the funds came differently. So it actually it looked worse. It looked worse because now it's not money that's coming directly from the banks. It's money that is being refunded to students, unknowingly being refunded. So when I did this time, now I'm really a scam jammer, right? I'm really deceitful right now, because what I'm doing is I'm looking at students who are able to get more than what is needed for school, and then they don't know this. And I wait for a little bit of time to where, okay, they're not going to ask for it, so I'm going to request it on their behalf, and the check's going to come here, and then I'm just going to keep it. And they don't know this, right? So this was, now I'm the ugliest person in the world inside, obviously, because why would you do that?
Right.
But I figured I had a foolproof, idea that would get myself, my family out of a situation, and that would get me back to this comfortability of freedom, of not worrying about everything falling. Yes, absolutely. And so, I didn't think about those other factors of how it would affect anyone else. I didn't. I'm not saying that I didn't care, but it just wasn't a factor in my thought process at all. And I would have never, I wasn't doing it thinking I'm hurting anyone, I'm doing something wrong to anyone. I just did it thinking to myself that I'm doing something that I need to do and that I can do to help myself and what I need to do. Right. So that's how that went.
So let's back up a little bit. So you said once you went to jail, you still owned your house, correct?
I still did, yeah.
Okay. And so how were you maintaining the mortgage and all of that when you were away for 6 months?
Well, so I was working. So while I was waiting, while I was waiting for my trial, my case and everything to be over, I still was working. I was working at another school doing something totally different.
Okay.
And I was able to make my payments. I put money aside so that while I was away, that my mortgage will still be able to be paid.
Maintained. Got it.
Right. So I was able to pay it for, and actually my sentence was 6 months, but I only did 3 months. In prison, and then I was home for the rest of the time. So I actually left 4 payments worth of mortgage home to be paid. Well, I paid like in advance before I left, and then had the other. And then when I came home, it was right in time for tax season, so I was able to. Right, it was like everything was in alignment. I was able to get the taxes done and then pay, but because it messed up. Because after that, there was nothing, because it was a while before I was able to even get another job after, coming home from prison. So it fell behind. I was ready to just jump off the roof, but it's like, I'm going to stay in this house until my kids graduate high school. Mm-hmm. So that was the goal. And however that needed to be done is how it was going to get done.
Got it.
So I worked and I made sure that it happened, but it was behind. And once it was behind, I could never catch up. So it was years worth of not being able to catch up, going through foreclosure process, all of this and that, me, just doing enough to fix that problem, let that go out the way, and then continue on it. Every single time. It's like every couple of months, I'm in the same position, every couple of months. And it continued on for years. I finally was able to let go of my youngest son's last year of high school.
Okay.
And that was my goal, that I would pretty much drive myself crazy
yes
until it was done. And I did. I was hanging by a string, but I needed to make that happen for them, is what I felt like.
So who kept your children while you were away for those 3 months?
So their father was home with them. He was home and he was sober at the time while I went to prison. And then I also had my sister and my mom. We had people, they were all staying there family. To help take care. Yeah, they were taking care of the kids while I was away. Right.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So now let's get into your book, A Year and a Day. Tell us about this book and what it means to you.
This was hell.
Okay. Tell us why it was hell.
I say that to say because it's a process that you say, the typical Ayana, I'm gonna write a book, right? Mm-hmm. But I didn't know all the real work that goes into doing that. I'm always open, honest, and transparent. I'll tell you what it is, right?
Yes.
It was also a healing. It was hell because it was a healing thing of things that I had not, again, ignore. Mm-hmm. Ignore this your whole life. And then boom, it's in front of your face. Now it's like, oh wow, really?
Right.
Yeah. So with the book and also in going through the process of even being on the show, I wasn't prepared for the show. I thought I could do something, you know? I didn't know until I started to do it where I was like, gee, I still have this wall up in myself. I'm still uncomfortable. I'm still not healed from things. It's not easy to discuss.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing the book. Okay, wow. Do I want to say that? No, I don't want to say that because I still have to look like,
The perfect person, right?
right. Or do I have to? Or do I even care anymore? When do you get to this point that you're okay with who you are? You keep ignoring the major factors of your life, of yourself, of who you are, who you want to be, where does that come from? Why did you think that you could hide bad things and just go through life looking like,
right, everything was perfect.
Everything's perfect? Because I grew up that way. As a young child, I was molested within, my family. And again, this is where doing the book and doing the show and healing and going through therapy, you have to go back to where things begin, right?
Yes.
So my life began when I was traumatized as a child. And I learned from there on how to hide, sweep things under the rug, lie, scam, because you're hiding something that's killing you and eating you alive your whole life. How did you get through life and ignore that?
Mm-hmm.
So now this feeling that you have comes out in your adult life or your teenage years on the way you just even live, because you've never been able to discuss or to get through the motions. And again, none of this is an excuse. These are all great things. These are all healing things. Unfortunately, I made decisions that landed me in prison. I took time away from my own life and away from my children's lives.
Mm-hmm.
Involved some victims, which I'd never been okay with saying victims. I didn't kill nobody, Well, they were victims because there were people that you stole from. So you have to accept that that's what you did.
Right.
So that's why I say it was hell for me, because all these things I still live in the same way, sweep under the rug and it's okay. No, just keep moving. Well, you can't just keep moving. You got to stop. And in order for you to move further, I should say, you have to accept, deal with right here.
Yes.
And then there's a next step for you. And that next step is so much greater for you. So I don't do the backtrack and, try to not admit or not say, I read comments and stuff about me and I was thinking, oh,
these people don't know me. I don't care.
You don't know me. You don't know me, but it affects me. I've never been a person to really care what people think. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to this and to hear outside of yourself and your own surroundings, how anyone can interpret something else, from doing what I did, you've been interpreted of, oh, she was just a thief trying to be a star. No, I wasn't trying to be a star. Okay. It's like, but you don't know me. But again, I could say the same about some other people. So it's okay that someone else thinks that. I don't feel any kind of way about it. I just take it in and I understand where that could come from. In no way, shape, or form does anyone have to agree with you or be happy with what you did. You go and you do wrong things, and the only thing that matters is what happens when you come out, or does that matter? You don't know. You just, again, you continue to move on and do better for yourself.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Now let's reflect back on your experience. Was committing these crimes, was it worth it? Would you have done anything differently? And what did you learn about yourself?
Nothing was worth it. None of it was worth it. Any day, minute, hour, second that I spent sitting in a cell, there's no amount of money that could get you back time.
Absolutely.
So it's not worth it at all, right? How I felt about myself, how I feel about myself now, I feel great about myself. I'm the strongest today that I've ever been in my whole entire life. And that's because I learned about myself that it was okay to uncover myself. I've accepted my whole journey. I'm not saying it's perfect and it's not okay. Sometimes it's like, shoot, but I accept it today. If you look at my interviews before today, you can see how uncomfortable I have been with answering simple questions about myself. I had not accepted myself truly. So today I have. I could talk about it. I stand on the mistakes I've made. I understand how it could be perceived and how it could be interpreted. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it. God is on my side at all times.
Absolutely.
He brought me to it, brought me through it. I'm still here. There's many people who've gone through similar things in life that I have that are not with us today because they couldn't accept it. Mm-hmm. They couldn't deal with it, or maybe they had to hide something and it was too painful to face ever in life. So they took their own lives, yes. Or they were in the wrong car with somebody because they were trying to get some fast money and they're in prison for the rest of their lives, or they died in the process. So today I can say, yeah, there were plenty of times that I felt that way. And today, I'm not that person today. I don't have those feelings today. So I've come very far and I'm very happy about that. I am.
And I'm very happy to be talking to you today and to be sharing your story.
Yes, I appreciate that. I do.
A few more questions. You definitely have the drive of an entrepreneur, spirit of a boss. And what are some of your other goals? We know you've done the TV show, you've written your book. What are some of your other future goals going forward as far as business that you want to achieve?
Well, right now I'm at the very ground level of a nonprofit organization. I'm actually enrolled in, what a lot of people don't know is since September, I've been enrolled at Boston College Law School.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm in this entrepreneurship program there with some investors and attorneys, and they're helping me build my nonprofit organization. My nonprofit organization, the name of that is A Year and a Day. It's same as my book. Significant to my federal prison sentence, where I feel like I started to learn more about myself and the life that I was living. So I have the nonprofit organization, and it's going to be for women re-entering back into society from prison. And it's not your typical transitional home where, or the halfway house where they send you and you just sit there and wait until your date to come out. It's actually to transform your life. Mm-hmm. So, it's about learning financial freedom. It's about getting treatment for yourself, healing, reunification with your families, getting to know yourself and helping you to stand stronger on a foundation for your own independence.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, and I'm working on that. And so you'll be seeing more about that coming. Okay. I'm always trying anything. And so with my book that's going out for all my pre-orders, I'm starting like a home essentials line as well. And I'm starting it off with candles. Okay. So I have these candles. So all of my pre-orders that have come in, they're going to receive a special gift box with the book in there, a bookmark, and a candle to introduce the new line. So I'm going to test it out with my pre-orders. Working on that. Working on some movie stuff.
Yeah. Yay.
I have some movie stuff. So I'm opportunities that come, if it aligns with what I'm trying to do and who I am, I'm trying to figure it out and see if it can work.
That is awesome.
Getting some of that generational curse lifted.
Yes. And creating generational wealth for your children.
That's right. Because I'm a grandparent now, life is different.
Congratulations. Yes. That's exciting.
You. Yeah, it is. I'm very thankful and grateful this season. Yes.
So if a young girl, let's say, for instance, she's heading down the wrong path in life, what is some advice that you would give to her to help try to turn her life around?
I would tell her to stand still. You have to stand still and listen and look at the signs around you, because we all get the gut feeling. You can ignore it if you want. But most of the times when you do that, oftentimes when anyone does that and just keeps on going anyway, nothing good comes from it. And that's just a general life experience from us all. We all know when something goes bad, it's like, I knew I shouldn't have did that.
Yes. Yes. Trust me, I've been there before.
There was so many stop signs before that decision, and I would encourage you to stop. Just stop dead in your tracks and just listen. Give yourself a chance. Give yourself the absolute chance, because people never think that they're going to do it. They're going to be able to succeed at something, little, depending on, who you are at the time or what's around you at the time or what you are focused on. really you don't think you're going to be successful at it. You don't. We talk ourselves more out of the best things for us than we do out of the wrong things.
Absolutely.
You know, the hard things are always the best things to do. The easy things is always like, oh no,
I can do it. Look.
Yeah, no, it's not that easy, boo. It is not.
It's not. Trust me,
It's
I
not.
can definitely
Right.
relate.
Right. So I encourage them to look at that. The more fight that you have to get through something, to your breakthrough, is the place that you need to go. So don't be afraid to fight those hurtful, painful things, because it's at the end of that, at the other side of that, it's going to be what's beyond your imagination, and it's worth it, and you're worth it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You are definitely worth it. So tell us how we can purchase your book. We can stay in contact with you, get these candles that you're going to be selling, and just follow everything, all your new endeavors.
Okay, well, the best way across social media, across all boards, is at MissMS.YANABEAN. I know that confuses people because my name is Ayana, then it says Yana. The name wasn't available, so.
So that's what you're going with, and that's what you got to stick with. I get it. I had the same issue.
So you can catch me on social media. I'm very active on Instagram as well, but across all platforms would be that. You can go to my Instagram, and the link in the bio will direct you directly to purchasing the book from my website, which is ayanabean.com. So that's AYANABEAN. You can go directly to my website, or you can go right to the Amazon link and you can download the ebook right now for the holiday season. So it's $6.99. If you have Kindle, you can go right there on Amazon, download the book. Let me stay at the top sellers list.
Yes.
And that's how you can follow everything that I'm doing. Like I said, I'm very active on there. Sometimes I reach back out to people. If I can, I love to see, what the people are thinking and their suggestions. So follow up with me.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. I know it's the day after Thanksgiving. I'm sure you probably want to still be sleeping and just chilling out and relaxing. So thank you for taking this time out to talk to me. I wish you nothing but continued success with your new journey and your road to redemption. And I just see success in your future. So congratulations on everything and the new grandbaby.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I know it's the day after the holidays. We should both be out sleep.
Just chilling, right? But it's okay. We're here with each other, and it was a pleasure.
Yes, it was definitely a pleasure. I appreciate you all for having me. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. You have a great rest of your weekend.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.